Welcome to Summit Youth's podcast. My name is Connor Vincent. I serve as the student pastor at Green Valley Baptist Church, and I serve as the host of this podcast. If you enjoy some of the content that we put out there, please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe for more. Now, when it comes to Christian podcasts, they're supposed to be a supplement for the church, not a substitute, meaning we want you guys who are listening to be involved in a local church and to be involved in your local youth ministries. So be prepared, buckle up, and have a good listen. Well, welcome to another episode of Summit Youth Podcast. This week we have a special guest. He is our high school boys leader for juniors and seniors. So everyone welcome Jared Nixon.
Hey, how's it going, guys? It's
welcome.
Good to see you guys.
Good to see you, Jared. Hey, Jared, I've known you my whole time at Green Valley. And based off of my knowledge of your family, you guys have been at Green Valley for a while. So how long have you guys been coming?
So I think one of the first times I remember coming was actually through Surge, which is now Summit, and that was back in seventh grade for me. So it's been quite a long time. It wasn't until maybe a year or two after that we decided to go as a family, start going to the regular service, but that's when I started going. So.
Yeah, and it's cool. I always see your guys' family sit together on the left side, and when Leah's in town or your brother's in town, it's good to have your family there. And yeah, so what's kind of like your story? How did you kind of come to faith? I'd love to hear that, and I'm sure anybody listening, your boys particularly, would love to hear that too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think definitely the most important part at the beginning was that my parents both were Christian. They met in college through InterVarsity. And from the moment I was born, I was under a Christian household. A lot of the values and morals that I got taught were through Christianity, through the Bible. And it wasn't until I'd say the beginning of college that I tended to look at things more intentionally. And there became points in my life where I was like, What are the things that I should be doing? What are the things that I value the most? And I tended to take those things and realize, hey, if these are the things that I really value the most, I should put all my effort into it. And that's when I kind of thought about the idea of God. And I think I believed in God before then, but it wasn't until I realized, like, hey, if this is absolutely something I believe in, then I need to put my whole energy, my whole effort into it. And that's when I feel I saw a switch in the way I was following God, following Jesus.
Yeah, it's always fun to kind of track that development because a lot of it is brain cognition of like, you came here in the middle of adolescence, seventh grade, right? Sixth grade is just a whole different year for anybody.
Right.
And watching everybody's brain develop in a different way and how they kind of understand the concept of God. And it continues to mature as you get older and you're like, man, I need to start taking life more seriously, or I need to dive deeper into this. So it's cool to see kind of how your brain sort of mold that over for years, because it's like youth group became like from a concept to like a necessity,
right?
You know?
Exactly.
And so, yeah, so you started coming. And that sort of thought process was middle school.
No, so when I decided to like fully, be on fire, I think it was more in college actually. I think it was more in the young adult scene when I got questions on me of like, about Christianity, and it made me think, oh, maybe am I actually thinking about these things? Am I following God, or am I knowing God? I think there was a big difference between those two things.
Yeah. Did that kind of come from your peers or professors or?
So I started doing, before I joined InterVarsity with UNLV, I actually was doing the young adult here more consistently. And with Pastor Matt, he just talked with me a couple times and was seeing what my faith was. And I think I did have a strong belief in God, but there was a couple things that he kind of challenged me on of like, what am I doing? And what does it look like for me to like truly follow? And I thought that was really important.
Yeah. And so you were baptized in?
Baptized in 2022.
Okay.
And yeah. In May or June, I think it was in the spring. So
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. That was before I got there. I just remember looking back on our young adults Instagram, and seeing your baptism on there. So
yeah.
it's always an exciting time.
Yeah.
And so now you went through college, right? Where'd you go to school?
Yeah, I went to UNLV. It was 4.5 years. I studied mechanical engineering. Just graduated in the middle of December, and yeah, so it was a fun time.
Yeah. And while you were in college and kind of growing up, you've been leading at Summit for about 2 years now, right? The first thing that you did was summer camp 2 summers ago.
Yes, right.
Yeah, I remember asking you, and then the boys fell in love with you, man. Couldn't get you away, and so then you decided to stick around for at least 1.5 years now, or almost 2 years of service. So, can you kind of give like how you approach leading high school boys in a small group level?
Yeah, I guess I could start a little bit from the beginning of like my experience with summer camp. Most of these guys I didn't know. It was meeting them for the first time, and I was probably not super confident. Maybe they would have thought I was, but at the beginning I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what they were going to do. I didn't know how summer camp was going to work as being a leader, and I just put all my trust in God, and I said like this is not my actions, these are yours, and let me do what I can to further your kingdom. And I think that sort of like taking the pressure off of me and like not worrying about what they would think or what would happen, I think helped a lot because it made me more genuine.
Yeah.
And I came from a better heart of like, yeah, that's what I want to do. I just want to do this for God. I'm not doing this to make me look better. I'm not doing this to, I'm not doing this for any gain of myself. And I think that helped me. And if anything, at the end, hearing that they enjoyed me leading, felt good because I was being genuine. I wasn't worrying about what they thought of me. I wasn't, sure, I have some ideas of like, I want them to think of me as a leader, but there wasn't a push of like, okay, well, I hope they enjoy their time. I hope I wasn't making that dependent on me, but, letting it put it in God's hands, I guess.
Yeah, which is cool. I've always found it kind of, when somebody's a little too polished, at least in preaching, because you know that there could be some pastors, is what Pastor Calvin calls it. He goes that they wax eloquent, meaning like they're just so focused on how well they are perceived by others, that they speak so well, even in their preaching. And that could overflow into, say, being a small group leader. You want to create this perception of, okay, what are my boys going to think about me? So I have to lead in this way to keep that thought. But you were just like, I'm just going to be myself. I'm not going to lead as if I'm trying to get some big return audience. I'm just going to lead faithfully and just be me. And I think that's what made the boys kind of be drawn to you. You know, that and you're 6'7".
Yeah. I think enjoying the activities with them and being a part of that helped. I think a lot of the guys probably shared similar hobbies and things, so that helped. But yeah, I was I don't want to say I was surprised that they wanted to have me as their leader more or want me to engage more, but I didn't expect there to kind of be a push for me to start leading them again.
Yeah.
So
that's cool. So what would you say, like in discipling or leading high school boys, right, upperclassmen, what's been like a big kind of hurdle or say challenge, whether that be in group time or just getting them plugged in more? What's something that you're kind of going through as a leader that might be challenging?
Yeah, I think something recently has been trying to get everybody to engage, and it definitely feels like there's some of the guys that talk more than others, and I can see how maybe some are not totally maybe close enough with the rest of them to feel comfortable enough to talk. I know I've been in situations like that as well. And so I think me trying to see how can I get all of these guys to be like almost best friends, to where they're willing to say kind of almost anything to each other, because I think that's important for Christian men around, young men around their age, to have people around them, have guys around them that they can be maybe vulnerable with, talk about things. And I just don't know if it's quite there yet. And I don't know if that takes time. I think that it takes a lot of effort on my part to make sure it's an inclusive area.
Yeah.
But I think that's been the hardest thing, but I want to really see that come to fruition, because I think it'd be so important for all of them to feel like they belong and like they can say anything, and especially saying something to me. I hope that would be something they can strive to do.
Yeah. And sometimes you're not always going to get the breakthroughs, but when you do, and you have that connection with that student, it's just like, man, it was all worth it waiting for it. And one of the things that I've liked to do in my years of leading small groups is, obviously there's going to be the students that will answer every question just without a doubt, and they're just going to go for it, even if they're wrong.
Yeah. Right.
But to the kids that just might not be there yet, sometimes like after group, like while you're walking back or walking somewhere else, you could just like put your hand on their shoulder and be like, hey man, I know that sharing in group might be hard, but dude, I would really appreciate to hear your output one of these days, because it might be good for others, or it just might be good for the whole discussion of the group. And, it might encourage them to share more during group,
Definitely.
So,
yeah. And I really think all of them are bright, and I think that they have the ability to answer all the questions I do. It's just that willingness to be like, okay, am I 100% correct if I say this? Am I going to get judgment? And I would never want them to feel that way. I think it'd be always important to have people talk and feel like they can without the fear of judgment. I think is important.
That's cool. And so was it last year or the year before, you've studied abroad before, but you went to Bosnia on a type of mission trip with InterVarsity. I actually didn't know about your family roots are within InterVarsity. So that makes sense why you and your sister are so plugged in with InterVarsity. So tell us about kind of, so we're talking to youth, teenagers, and if other people want to listen, that's okay.
Yeah.
Kind of the importance of living on mission, whether that be local or global, international, whatever that may be. Kind of what was your experience going and doing missions? Absolutely.
So give a quick summary of what InterVarsity was, at least for me. It's a little bit of a club that's integrated with the university. It's a registered organization, such as, astronomy, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But the emphasis is on making a community of UNLV students, but not neglecting that church. And I think the important part that I've seen from InterVarsity is that all the people still go to church. They have their own church, their own community there. But then when you're on a university campus, when you're at class, when you're in between classes, you can have your groups, your studies. It just is a balance between those two things. A little different than a young adult type scene.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, InterVarsity, they have global programs all throughout the world. The one that UNLV hosts with a couple other universities in the Southern California region. We go to Sarajevo, Bosnia. Yep.
Wow.
And we went for 4 weeks. The emphasis was to show, to teach English. We were there to actually host English conversation classes. Just 8 students that went, and I was responsible for some of the advanced English students who were learning at a higher level than others. And all of them spoke very good English. They just wanted that conversation aspect from a native. So I was there for 4 weeks. Was able to learn a lot about Bosnia, and also show everybody, show a lot of the people there, the students there, what my faith is, my faith in Christ, give my perspective on what I've learned about God, what I've learned about the Bible, and why I do it. And so I think one of the more important things that I learned is that all people are very similar, and like it does not matter. Like God created everybody equally, and there tends to be things that I shared with some of the Bosnian students that I would have never thought of, and it didn't have to be, it didn't matter where they were born. It didn't matter what religion they were born with. It really showed me the creation that God gave, the human aspects, and those kind of traits that God created and gave to us. And regardless of what happens and what you go through, we always have those kind of small things. And so I don't know, that was something really important to me that I saw, is that I kind of went into this thinking, oh, they're, a lot of these people grew up Muslim, they still believe in Allah, and they're going to be very, different than me. And there was differences, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But I tended to see that, man, there was a lot of things that we shared similarly, and that we believed. And I think the main thing is, what the big difference between that is that I'm following Jesus. I'm believing in the God of the Bible. And that's a big thing. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of similar things that they had that I just was hoping that they could kind of, you're getting there. You're close to learning who Jesus is. And so, yeah, that was an important thing for me.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
I think it's always been intriguing too, the times that I've been in different parts of the world where whether it be just for exploration or for mission, or just the different kind of trips that I've been out of the country, just finding those relative traits amongst humans of like, man, we all want and desire community. We all desire humor. We desire to cheer for something. Like I remember I was in Europe in 2016 for the Euro Cup, and I think France won that year. But to be in Germany and to be in Italy during that time and watching these games and just relating to people of like, wow, we like to celebrate, we like to be happy. And it's like, yes, our religions are different, and we want to share the good news of ours with them. But part of it starts with, teaching English so that they could, and I couldn't tell you how important that is, because we have a local missionary here who our church supports, and a lot of refugees come from Afghanistan and different places like that, and they learn English here by using different biblical texts and stuff. Yeah. And it's like these people grew up in these Muslim countries, and they come here to learn English by using the Bible, and they're like, wow, this whole God of the Bible thing, it seems a lot more graceful and loving than what I'm used to. And so, what was that kind of the religious difference like while you were there?
Yeah, so I think a main thing that I saw was there was everybody in Sarajevo, the capital of Bosnia, generally was Muslim. They came from like Turkish ancestry, and so majority of them were their family was Muslim. The main thing that I saw is that I only found a handful that were devoted similarly to as how I devote myself to Jesus. There was a couple that would go to pray. There was a couple that would do kind of the activities that Muslim people do. But there was a lot that I feel like kind of said, oh, my parents are Muslim, or my grandparents are Muslim, but I'm not really following that faith. And so I think there was a couple that also, or some of them also kind of thought that, it's just the thing I was born with. It's what I do. And I think that difference made it apparent for us to say, hey, my parents didn't make me Christian. Like, I did not choose to follow Christ because my parents did. It was a decision that I made solely by myself. My parents had helped me in that process and showed me what it's like to be Christian, but it wasn't until I decided for myself that, hey, this is something I want to believe in. This is something that I have faith in. We had friends. I had friends from other university that came with me that didn't have parents that were Christian.
Yeah.
And so to see that of being like, whoa, he's Christian, but his parents aren't Christian is kind of different. And I think that was a big difference.
Yeah. It's weird amongst the different religions when it comes to familial ties, if that makes sense. When it comes to people who are born in a Muslim family, it's like they're Muslim. Or even like a Jewish family, it's like we're Jewish, like by religion as well. Or even Catholics as well. Yeah. But I feel like with Christians, it's the one where it's like it's your personal relationship and your personal choice, which I think shows the beauty of Christianity of like, hey, it's not a religion that God forces upon people or even families. He does command us to raise our children in the ways of the Lord, right? But it's always, there has to be a relational aspect, not a religious aspect, because you'll see people who will be like, no, I'll go to the grave. I'm a Catholic, and they go to church on Christmas and Easter. That's it. And they're like, well, I'm hardcore. And it's like, no, you're not. You go to church twice a year, you know? Yeah. Whereas Christianity is focused on the relationship. Yes, there's obviously religious things that we do. We pray, we go to church, you know, fast and all these different things. But I like how relational Christianity is. And I feel like when you go to other places in the world, you kind of don't really see that within the religious sphere, but more so in like the public sphere, that there's a lot more relativity between people in public places. Yeah.
And that's kind of what like a mission is getting towards, because it's saying, well, not everybody is going to be born in a Christian family. And that's the reality, unfortunately. And so the missions are helping to go towards that problem and going and being like, hey, this area that doesn't have Christian values or wasn't raised Christian, we're going to kind of help and see what goes on there. So that's kind of what I see, because I think for a lot of people in Bosnia, they would have felt, oh, if Christianity was the right one, God would have made me I would have been born in a Christian family, or if I was Orthodox, etc. And that's just not the reality that we live in. It's
like you must be born again. You can't be born into it by blood. It's born into it by water and spirit. Cool. That's awesome, man. Well, I love sharing about those things and kind of your experience as a young adult. And so because you do lead upper class boys, they're getting closer and closer to college, closer and closer to moving out of their parents' house. How would you say, as a Christian, how you navigated getting through college? Because my biggest worry as a youth pastor is I minister to these kids for the 7 years that I have them, 6th to 12th grade, and then they go off to college and just abandon the years of what I tried doing. It seems that you have held on to the faith. So what would kind of be your encouragement to the teenagers listening that are getting older?
I mean, I think an easy answer to that is just continuing what you have given to them. And that community, I think, is going to be the most important part as they continue to follow in faith, that they won't have Summit. They won't have something quite like Summit, but they're going to have opportunities. And whether that's InterVarsity, whether that's the young adult here at Green Valley, getting plugged into something, could also just be church, getting plugged into something, finding a community, specifically finding a community around your age or around something that connects you. So it could be college, it could be sports, whatever it may be. Finding that community is going to be really the most important part, I think.
Yeah. And for you, it was, you didn't stop coming to Green Valley. You came to our young adults, and you also went to InterVarsity. You stayed in kind of Christ-centered Christian groups that kept you rooted. And so I just always, when kids are graduating and they're like, all right, I'm moving to Reno or Phoenix, I'm like, okay, let's find you a church before you even leave. Yeah. Because once you're there and your parents aren't saying, all right, wake up, let's go to church, and you're that college kid in that dorm, you have the decision to be like, well, maybe I won't go today. And then you do that the next weekend.
Yeah.
And you do it another weekend, and then you're just like, I find myself not really plugged into a church. And then, I've seen that happen far too many times,
Yeah.
and I don't want that to happen to any of you. Okay.
Yeah. And I think something that is hard and something I kind of gotten my eyes open to is thinking that you'll find this perfect community, this perfect church. And the saying that no church is perfect is correct. And you kind of just have to have faith that you're going to find something.
Mm-hmm.
And whether it's maybe a church that you might not think is going to work, I think doing something, finding some community is going to be the most important. It's better than nothing, I think.
Yeah. And so how has kind of life been post-college? Like how have you been navigating that? Now you're working full-time. What's that like?
Yeah. So it's been about almost 3 months now working, no university, but continuing to do summit and everything and keeping up with the young adults. I think that's been harder. I think InterVarsity gave me a schedule of like, I have a study that I'm doing. I have we met for a mini service on Thursdays to have those things set up, and then kind of meeting once or twice a week,
Mm-hmm.
if that, now has made the schedule a little bit different, I think. And I think I'm continuing to, I think really important part has been I've still been leading Summit. I think that's helped a lot. But I think just, again, finding that community and keeping up with friends and people around you that can hold you accountable has been the most important part for me.
Yeah. Very important. So just don't try and be a lone wolf, man. These people try and do it once they get older because they're like, oh, I'm finally out of the house and I'm running on my terms now.
Yeah.
I always try and illustrate this to the students of the importance of being a part of a local church. It's like you have a campfire and you have all the logs stacked together and you have a good fire going, and then you just take a log out and put it over there, and then you take another log out and put it over there, and over time you just scatter all the logs. What's going to happen to that fire? The fire is going to go out, and it's important. Even if you end up in a church that might not be stylistically the one that you're favorite of, you might end up in a church that does only hymns, but stay plugged in once you're in college, because it's the most important thing that you could do. Yeah. I went to a Bible college where we actually had to log our church attendance. If we didn't go to church, we would get deducted like, I don't know, like in our grades and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, but when you go to a non-Christian college, they don't track your church attendance, so you have to go.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's your decision. And I think it's important, kind of what you're saying. We look at the New Testament and Paul's writing to other churches,
Mm-hmm.
and he's connecting himself and likely church with church, because first it's small, but also that's just what you do. You're always in community.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's so important. We look at that as just, why wouldn't we do that if Paul's going to do it? So,
yeah. Well, cool. That's awesome. So do you have any like particular favorite hobbies you do in town that maybe you take the guys out doing something? I like to golf. I want to try and teach kids how to golf. What was something that you might like to do?
Put me on the spot now. I don't, that's funny you ask. I think there's this transition from college to job has seen me kind of decrease in my hobbies, just trying to figure things out and realizing that I kind of have more time to do hobbies since college. But I love all types of sports. I did baseball in high school, so I'd always enjoy hitting the cages.
Dude, we need to go hit the cages one of these days, man.
It'd be fun. It'd be fun. I was hoping I could do that more, but I enjoy video games just like the rest of them, I'm sure. And
not me.
Yeah.
I don't do video games.
Yeah. The rest of my kids, but
my brother was so good at video games growing up that he would just demolish me. So I just became an athlete. I went outside.
That's a good way of doing things. Yeah. I think those are probably the main things, but
yeah. Cool. I'm going to put you on the spot here. One more question. And then if you were to put Christianity on trial, what would be, and you were the defendant, right? You were the attorney defending Christianity in court. Why should somebody believe in the message of the Bible and Christianity?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a good question. Let me think.
I'll give you a couple seconds.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different routes you could go, but maybe it could just be a conglomerate of things, you know?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think really one of the most important things that stands out to me is as I read the Bible, as I read about all the stories, specifically all the stories that go on in the New Testament, I see all these characters that either saw Jesus or heard about him, and they're willing to do anything for them and for him, and they're willing to do. They're willing to go to death for him. And as I've read these things, I just get this overwhelming sense that someone wouldn't just die and think that, oh, well, maybe Jesus is God. Maybe this person that came to earth, he's God. I truly think that if you're willing to die for something, willing to give your life, I think it must be quite important. And I don't know what was going through any of the disciples' heads, but I can feel this sense of like just devotion that they had back then. And I think it should transcend up to this point. I think that's important.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I watched this guy live, perform miracles. I watched this guy calm a storm by talking, walk on water. I saw him preach these incredible sermons where thousands of people would gather. He would walk through crowds and people would be healed just by touching his robe. You know, I saw all these things, and he even said he was going to die. We didn't really understand that part until he came back from the dead, appeared to us. We touched his scars. We saw him. We shared meals with him. And then he ascended into heaven. And it's like they wouldn't die for a lie.
Exactly.
And I always like to tell people that it's hard enough to live for something, to even live for yourself. But the disciples, they found purpose in, we're going to live for Christ, one, because he died for us, but we're going to live for him so much so that if it means that we die as well, then we celebrate in the fact that we got to carry this message even unto our death. Yeah. And that's the gospel.
Yeah. And I think going along with that, we look at the Bible, the text that we're supposed to read daily, the text that we're supposed to follow. It's thousands of years old, and we've contained it. We've kept it up to its original value thus far, and along with that, the religion of Christianity has kept. It's never died out.
Yeah.
We look at that. That shows to me a really powerful religion, a really powerful text, as we see that it goes through generations of and so many different countries where I just see that as a very, very important part.
Yeah. It's a universal message despite the exclusive belief that Jesus is the only way. And it's amazing. And so that's why we do what we do. Yeah. We want to disciple the youth. We want to share the good news with them so that when they do make it to their college years, they can hold strong to the faith. When they become a young man like yourself and done with college, they can prepare themselves for a life of work, a life of service in their church. And hopefully, one day they'll all be married, and if God doesn't call them to marriage, that's fine too. Sorry. Yeah. I don't always expect people to get married. Yeah. And raise families for the Lord as well. And so, yeah, I couldn't do it without you, Jared. Yeah. I'm grateful for the way that you lead our boys. I'm looking forward to the rest of the school year with you, and I'm grateful for you. So
yeah. Could I say one more thing?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I guess I'm kind of getting out a couple of the reasons why I tend to follow, and one just popped in my head. I think felt really important for me to say as I think about Christianity and what it looks like for for me to believe in Jesus as God. I look at all the world of religions, and the vast majority of the most popular ones have Jesus sprinkled in at some capacity.
Yep.
When you look at Islam, they see Jesus as a prophet. When you look at even Buddhism, they believe that Jesus has some sort of wisdom in the teachings and sayings that he has. And then you look at Mormonism and all this type of stuff. Jesus is recognized to some capacity. But when you look at Christianity, Jesus is recognized solely and looked at as God. And so when I think about this, is like, why would Jesus be in all of these, other than the fact that he's God?
Yeah.
And so I think that to me seems like a really important aspect.
Yeah. If he keeps appearing in every other religion, then maybe he's just the right one.
Yeah.
It's kind of like in Corinth or Athens when they had a statue built to the unknown God. And Paul's like, I'm going to tell them about that God.
Yeah. Right.
It's so cool. Cool. Well, appreciate you, Jared. I hope you have a great rest of your week. I appreciate the conversation. And so all y'all listening, thank you for tuning in to another episode. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, comment, do all those lovely things. And we'll see you guys on another episode.
See you guys.